Next up, we're thrilled to welcome Daniele Perito. Daniele is the co-founder and chief data officer at Faire. Daniele oversees all data and risk management to enable the company and its customers to make data-driven decisions whenever possible. Prior to Faire, Daniele was Director of Security, Risk for Square Cash, where he worked on building secure, fast, and easy-to-use products. Daniele led the integration of products that made it easier for individuals to collect payments, including the Snap Cash and Twitter political campaign donations via Square Cash. He holds a Master's of Computer Network Security from University of Rome Sapienza, a PhD of Computer Science from INRIA Grenoble, and a postdoc in Computer Science from the University of California, Berkeley. Daniele is joined by John Wilfong, Vice President of Strategic Accounts at Scale. John, over to you.
Hi, Daniela. So nice to meet you today.
Hi, John. Nice to meet you as well.
Really excited to be connecting with you today. I think we're all looking forward to learning more about you and what you're doing with data at Faire. So, Faire is a wholesale marketplace that connects independent retailers with independent brands. Faire is now valued at $12.4 billion, raising an additional $415 million extension to its Series G financing. Broadly speaking, what are some of the core areas you focused on to grow the business as Chief Data Officer?
So my role as Chief Data Officer is entangled with my role as a founder of the company. So I'll try to answer the question in the most broad terms possible. So specifically as a Chief Data Officer, I oversee the data infrastructure of the company. So this is things that the audience is going to be very familiar with, replicated in the data warehouse, making sure the data warehouse has correct data, making sure that our data models support correct decision-making and good insights for the rest of the business. In addition to building a machine learning platform that can support all of the data scientists that do the modeling work, the train models to put in production. And in addition to managing the team that actually trains models to make predictions to help our customers. I would say that I take the responsibility very dearly of making sure that we make correct decisions as a business, and the data leads us to correct decisions as a business. And I think one of the roles of the Chief Data Officer is making sure that the rest of the team around the organization has a really easy time unpacking the data and doesn't need to spend too much time chasing it down or making sure that it's correct. In addition to that, I'm always eager to make sure that we can deploy as many customer-facing models that help them make better decisions, that help them onboard more seamlessly, that help them find what they're looking for in the marketplace.
That's super interesting. What are some examples of customer-facing models your team's worked on?
Yes. Now, obviously, as an e-commerce marketplace, we have the traditional sort of discovery/search/ranking problem. That is one of the most challenging problems that anybody has to solve, I think. It is incredibly deep, and it is not only related to making sure that, for example, when a customer searches for something, you are finding the most relevant products for the search, the products that are more likely to be ordered. But it also has to do with us making sure that we are highlighting and spotlighting new brands that join the platform. And there are many interesting multiple objective optimization problems, because all of a sudden you're not only optimizing for conversion on the marketplace, you're not only optimizing for people wanting something and ordering, you're also optimizing for the supply side, getting enough exposure in the marketplace. So I think we may have some chance later on to go into more depth here, but we will spend hours just talking about search, discovery, ranking, because it's a super deep field. I mean, obviously it's been studied extensively for decades at this point. It's a field where there are tons of opportunities for us to make the experience of our customers delightful and seamless. So that's one, and I can go into more if you like.
No, I think that's super helpful. It's great to hear that you've prioritized those types of things to make a differentiated experience for your customers. And so one thing we noticed too is that Faire has experienced a significant amount of growth over the past year, despite challenges to the supply chain and the retail sector. What are the key contributors to these growth areas, and how has Faire continued to innovate despite these macro factors?
Yeah, so I think that one thing that has been clear to me over the past 2 years is that our customers are incredibly resilient. It's in our platform, there are hundreds of thousands of small businesses. Obviously, there are millions and millions across the globe that we haven't started serving yet. But one thing that I've discovered, for example, at the beginning of the pandemic, is just that small independent retailers started selling surgical masks because that way they'd be classified as essential businesses and they could stay open and provide a service to the community. And throughout the supply chain challenges over the last 12 months, we've seen an incredible amount of resilience as well, with businesses trying to find products that would ship faster, small businesses, small retailers trying to order products that would ship faster. I would say specifically with respect to the supply chain issues, we're a little bit more insulated than some of the other large retailers or e-commerce marketplaces, because our customers prefer to shop for local goods. Goods are traditionally produced either in the US for US retailers, or in Canada for Canadian retailers, or in the UK for UK retailers. You see where I'm going with this. But our customers who are stores who need to buy merchandise to sell tend to prefer local goods. And those local goods have been less affected by the long supply chain issues that have troubled the world over the last 12 months.
That's great. It's like you knew this was coming and built a resilient business around it. Good for you. So you mentioned earlier product discovery, product rankings, search, recommendation systems. They're all kind of key to building great e-commerce websites when you're talking about your ML initiatives. And it's also really incredibly important for a two-sided marketplace like Faire. What are some of the problems you initially faced with product discovery and recommendation systems at Faire, and how did you uncover these problems?
I think that one of the primary things that we focused on has been to not only optimize for conversion, and this has been one of the biggest challenges we've had to face. I'll give you what I mean here. So first, on the buyer side, our stores buy on the marketplace to sell, as I mentioned earlier. And I think traditionally for a buyer, you tend to only optimize for conversion. So you only want to make sure that if they see something, they'll like it and then buy it, put it in their cart, and then check it out and buy it. From the very beginning, we realized that our game was a little bit different than consumer marketplaces, just because these stores wouldn't just buy things and then consume them. They would buy them and then try to sell them. And then if those things didn't sell so well, a few things will happen then. And, first, they wouldn't be happy with us, and we wouldn't want to stand that. That's contrary to our mission. And then secondly, they will also return it back to us, because in addition to many of our other value propositions, we offer our stores the ability to return products back to us that didn't sell for whatever reason. So a key challenge for us from the very beginning was to say, okay, conversion is clearly not the only thing that matters here. There is a component of making sure that things that these stores buy, that these retailers buy, actually work for them and actually work in growing their business. So this has been a huge theme for us from the beginning. kind of optimizing not just for what works for us, but also for what works for our customers, those SMBs, small businesses. On the supply side, it's a similar thing where, again, those are small businesses. We take their success very seriously. We want to make them successful. So, for example, when they join, as I was mentioning earlier, we've been focusing from almost the very beginning in making sure that they will get enough exposure to in the marketplace, so that our machine learning models will collect enough signal, enough features to actually understand how well they will perform on the platform. So I think that this has been a challenge that set us apart. Obviously, we're not the first marketplace to optimize for multiple sides in ranking, in search and discovery and recommender systems. Many people face this challenge. But I would say that we perhaps have taken this challenge seriously from the very, very early days, because it was so important for us to make both our readers and our brands successful on the platform. And so optimizing multiple objectives in one ranking system has been one of the primary challenges on the search and discovery ranking side. There have been also other interesting challenges that I can speak about on other sides of the business, but that's one that comes to mind.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think in a lot of our conversations with other kind of e-commerce players too, conversion tends to always be just the number one sole metric a lot of people are looking at, among other things. And hearing from you in your two-sided marketplace, kind of the fundamental principles you had from the beginning and optimizing for all of those, and the unique set of challenges you deal with is really interesting to learn about.
Yeah, and I would say that maybe one challenge there is to make sure that you don't get too carried away. There is an interesting balance between conversion and then all of the other things that you can optimize as well, because conversion is hard to optimize for, but at least is somewhat knowable. The other factors that you might want to optimize for not only are just as hard as to optimize as conversion, but sometimes they lag a lot longer. It's a lot harder to get real signal about what amount of real good you're doing into the marketplace. So I think a big challenge for us has been, okay, how do we balance the efforts between those two factors, conversion versus everything else? And also reminding ourselves that, of course, it's super important for us to get the right sale to the right business, but if a sale doesn't happen in the first place because we return bad results in search, that's also a big failure. So optimizing all of these things at once has definitely been one of the primary challenges in ranking and discovery.
Yeah, I can imagine. And not only just optimization, but I'd be really curious to learn from you, like how you have attribution, right? So if you've got your team thinking about data, machine learning, and then you're also trying to drive conversion in the end, figuring out, hey, what impact do you actually have to conversion? Because it's really tricky to trace back the entire buyer journey and maybe what some of those impacts are coming from both data and ML. Do you have any perspective on that?
So right now we are trying to optimize for a to-cart conversion for the most part. It's low enough in the journey that signals enough intent so that we can actually build our models to predict to-cart conversion. It's not so low in the funnel that the signal becomes too sparse. And it's also not so high that you can get too much compounding noise where people are perhaps clicking on a result in the search results page and then not seeing what they want. But it's definitely been a journey from, do you do last touch attribution, first touch attribution? Do you attribute everything they've seen on the search page to what they eventually order? I would say that we've spent a good amount of effort on that, but perhaps it hasn't so far been the longest pole in the tent when it comes to prioritizing and planning. Like there have been other things that seem more important. For example, query understanding in search, or semantics-based retrieval for our document and product index. I'm sure at some point we'll hit other points of diminishing returns so that um, so that, like really, really precise attribution and even more precise attribution than we do today will become the real bottleneck to our optimization efforts. But so far, we've landed on a relatively good spot, and we're not doing a ton of work on that front right now.
That's great to hear. Lots of opportunities, lots of impact being driven by machine learning in your team. How has improving product discovery, search, and recommendation system impacted key areas of the business?
There is, in my mind, for a company like Faire, there is almost unbounded upside in optimizing these funnels and these flows for customers. The reason for that is simply because people want to have a nice experience where if they have a thought about something that they would love to order, your system is right there ready to get their query and then return perfect results. And I think that there is an amount of trust that gets built over time if you're continuously doing that properly. And I've seen that for myself as a consumer, where there are certain platforms that are constantly answering my questions and my queries correctly, and I find myself going there over and over and over again. So the business impact so far has been large. We're talking multiple tens of percentage points of conversion optimization. As you know, it's hard to stack A/B tests. It's hard to know exactly what A/B tests were actually, how the A/B tests would stack over time, because we never have a counterfactual of what would have happened without those things in aggregate. But I will be confident in saying that probably our marketplace GMV is more than 50% higher today than it would have been, even higher than that, and if we hadn't invested what we have invested in these areas. And even more potentially more boldly than that, I would assume that there is just as much, if not more, left for us in the next 10 years to optimize. I have a fundamental belief that there is an almost unbounded amount of value that we can create for our customers, and therefore upside that we can generate if we do one of our core jobs in the marketplace correctly. I kind of go back to what are some of our core jobs as a marketplace, and discovery is certainly one of them. Creating the right opportunities for connections between supply and demand, and then there are other things like trust and stuff like that. But clearly, discovery is one of the very, very core values that we provide as a marketplace. So I think that in the next few years we'll see continued investment and hopefully reap the rewards of this investment.
And how would you say that product discovery is also making an impact on the business?
So this is one of our core value propositions as a marketplace. We are the connective tissue between our supply side, the brands, and our demand side, the retailers. And I think making sure that our retailers can find the right brands for their store, the brands that their customers will love the most, the brands that will sell better, is key for us. And how that affects our business it affects our business in probably 5 to 10 ways, and it helps us in multiple ways. First, it increases the likelihood that a retailer on the platform will want to come back and shop again because they see that we continue offering good recommendations to them. Secondly, it convinces our brands that we are the right platform for them to invest the time and effort to list their products, curate their website, curate their page, curate their profile. And for that, they need to receive orders from the right retailers. And then there is a very long tail of other benefits that we get from our product discovery. But yeah, it's probably one of the biggest initiatives that we have in terms of machine learning and data science.
Fantastic. So one of the things that we've observed in working with our customers is that using data, whether this is customer or product data, using it effectively in marketplaces is key for e-commerce companies. As Chief Data Officer, you've written about how Faire's marketplace is full of challenging and stimulating data problems. What are some of the core data problems you are facing today, and how are you innovating to solve these problems?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think that's a great question. So I like to tell candidates that marketplaces have the best data problems, because in a marketplace, you're really creating a small micro economy, and there are all sorts of interesting challenges that emerge from that. Now, from product discovery and search, which we already talked about at length, to supply science, to managing risk, managing trust in the marketplace, and everything in between. Those are some of the more machine learning based challenges. And then there is the challenge of how do you organize the data so that the rest of the business can make correct decisions and can draw the right conclusions from the data and the experiments. And that's a very interesting area as well. But let's start from the former. So what areas of the marketplace can be optimized for our customers by building machine learning models or some type of decision system that depends on the data, that depends on the data we've collected from our customers or we've collected with interaction from the interaction with the website or the app. So there is risk. So we need to manage risk as a marketplace. For us, risk has a specific meaning, just because when our retailers buy on the platform, they actually can pay 60 days after buying. And Faire can incur into a non-repayment risk, like a default risk. So in that sense, we need to build a collection of machine learning models that when a retailer signs up and joins the platform, we need to be able to predict at that time what is the risk that potentially they'll never pay us back. And for that, we have a variety of models. We have a model that says, oh, should this retailer get the ability to pay 60 days later? Yes or no? If so, how much is their limit to order under those conditions? In addition to that, when they're about to check out, we look at their cart and everything that they've done up to that point to make an extra determination. Then there is a human in the loop system where we make as many automated decisions as we can based on our past experiences with customers. And then if the system is able to make decisions automatically, that's great. But if it's not, we then feed it into a risk operations team that looks at accounts individually one by one to assess risk. And throughout all of this journey, throughout all of these models, it's about collecting data, collecting orders data, repayment data, making sure it's all ready in the data warehouse, making sure that we have a machine learning feature store that is correct and it has all the right features to build models upon, making sure that we even can build models based on the decisions of our risk operations analysts, so that their decisions in the admin dashboards are collected and collated so that we can build models on top of that. And this is important for us because Net 60 is one of our core value propositions. This is how we allow small businesses to order on terms, which is highly beneficial for their cash flows. And we think that it's a uniquely differentiated value proposition we can offer by seeing so many orders on the platform. And at the same time, brands can offer terms to retailers, Net 60 payment terms to retailers that they wouldn't normally be able to offer because they wouldn't know how to manage the risk on the repayment or how to chase down late invoices and late overdue past due payments. And so to us, this was one of the most important value propositions to offer at the very beginning. And I'm really happy with how we were able to use all of the data that we have at our disposal to offer this differentiated value proposition that is really helping our customers. And this is one other case. There's more stuff around supply and science supply optimization that I can go into if you like. Or we can go into issues of sort of data quality, data cataloging for the benefit of the rest of the business.
Yeah, I'd love to go into the data quality topic, but before that, just want to call out really interesting to learn that the types of ML things you're working on right now aren't just end customer facing activities that I think we all immediately think about, but even this kind of risk analysis on the back end is just really interesting to hear about all the different challenges and opportunities that you have in your team to be using ML for all sorts of different things. Maybe to go to the next thing around data quality you mentioned earlier, Faire has over 500,000 retailers buying wholesale products online across Europe and the US. To help retailers find merchandise for their stores, Faire requires a strong, authoritative product catalog. What techniques are you employing to better improve and utilize product data at Faire?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that you're talking about how we're making sure that the way that brands enter the catalog information is correct. So let's touch on that a little bit, but I would also like to touch on general data quality at Faire. So when brands join the platform, they're typically asked to enter their product catalog. So this includes obviously information about the products that they sell, the options within each product, the photos, descriptions, text, and all of those things. I think that there are a number of things that we do there. Number one is that when the data needs to be entered in the system, we have a couple of models that are trying to predict what is the right category of a product, for example, the right attribute for a product, so that amongst the list of thousands and thousands of options, we can give the right 5 that are the most likely ones. So I'll give you an example. If I am a home decor brand and I need to enter a product, and let's say that product has the product name of scented candle, well, that brand will have to choose between 3,000 product categories, which one really applies to the product. And we have a model that basing on the embedding of the product name, the embedding of the image of the product as it was entered so far. So it says, hey, these might be 5 categories that apply to this product. And one of them might be candle. So upon intake of data, we have several models that help with that. Additionally, we attempt to make sure that the data is as good as possible to make our brand successful. So we have some models that were built on top of various experiments that are kind of nudging brands towards telling them, hey, it appears like your products are lacking this type of information. Based on data, we've discovered that there is an X% increase in conversion for your products if you were to input this information. So I think that those types of nudges are really important to call out whenever there is an opportunity for them to take an action that will ultimately make them become more successful on the platform. And then I love creating win-win situations, and that it's a sort of prototypical example of that, where we have data, we can tell them what's more important for their profile page and for their catalog, and so we can nudge them towards doing the highest value actions at any point in time. So those are 2 examples that come to mind. There are more things, but I think those are 2 good examples on how we can work with our customers to improve their catalog data and their product catalog quality, so that they get more sales on the platform, and we get more sales as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's helpful to get people to think more about the data that they're putting into the system and all the different attributes and information that's going to yield higher conversion. That being said, it sounds like your team's making some pretty significant investments in using machine learning to actually normalize, enrich the type of data that's coming in to ensure that you're giving the best data experiences to your end customers.
Yeah, it's definitely there is a union between the human and the machine. I think that our systems can make they can make the work of our customers easier, and they can also complement the work whenever the scale of it is just too large. For example, you have to tag 1,000 products because you're uploading 1,000 products all at once. So it's really hard to like do it all at once, as you all well know at scale. Uh, but at the same time, I think it's also making sure that we recognize the value of human intuition as well, because these brands know their customers way better than we can know, and therefore we need to work with them and empower them to enter the most appropriate data for the product, and also empower them with information about what will be the strategies that might help them as well.
Absolutely. Great to hear. So experimentation for e-commerce sites is key to creating personalized experience for customers. What are you currently experimenting with at Faire?
I think at any point in time, we have several dozens of experiments running, which I don't know how to benchmark in the industry, but it feels like a lot to me. There, at any point in time, I don't know exactly at this very moment what are some of the most. I mean, I'd have to go back and look, but at any point in time, we'll be running experiments probably on some new search and discovery model, like some new version of our query understanding model, for example. That's going to be one of the ones that we work on a lot. We are going to probably run new versions of models and running them as A/B tests versus old versions of models. We will be testing new features and understanding how well those features resonate with our customers and how well they like them and whether or not they use them. I would say that maybe some of the most challenging experiments that we run are the experiments that have to do with both sides of the marketplace. Those are just incredibly hard to run properly. There are all sorts of pitfalls in running them correctly and making good decisions, but we try our best. We have a wonderful team of data scientists focused on causal inference techniques so that we can reanalyze these more complex A/B tests on the platform, and especially the ones that are not clean. It's not about changing the ones that are not about, for example, changing the color of the checkout button, which really only pertains to the reader side. But the ones that have to do with both sides of the marketplace, typically those have to involve some incentive structure that both sides may be aware of, or potentially experiments that have to do with the supply side, as it really strongly affects the demand side as well. And we have a wonderful team that looks into those experiments in what is the best way to design them, conduct them, run them, and analyze them.
Nice. It sounds like a fun team to work on. Lots of fun challenges. And so I think the experiments help cover the future, but what are some of the top lessons you've learned during your time at Faire?
Yeah, I think I've been reflecting a lot about this, and I think that a few things come to mind. One is just how sticky data infrastructure is, and therefore how much you should really make sure that you're making the right decision as you're selecting what to build or what to buy and what provider, what vendor to buy from. Some of our oldest data infrastructure is 5.5 years old, is basically as old as the company. And it's been chugging along ever since. And moving away from that infrastructure is hard because there is terabytes upon terabytes, and for tens of or hundreds of terabytes, and for other companies it's going to be petabytes and beyond. But moving all of the data around and moving it to new systems is not easy, and there is a lot of organizational inertia and a lot of people that are used to the old systems and a lot of models that depend on that data and depend on those systems. And so I think one of the biggest takeaways and learning is just make sure that as you're building your infrastructure around data and machine learning, you really try to spend the right amount of effort to make the right decision, just because it's going to get harder and harder to switch away from things. And luckily enough, we've had a pretty good batting average, I will say. So we've had to do a minimal number of really big refactors and really big reworkings of our infrastructure. But the ones that we've had to do have been challenging and they've involved multiple people for a long time. And so, yeah, that's one of the biggest learners for me.
Yeah, well, at least it sounds like you thought about these things very early on in your journey. And from what you've talked about today, these investments clearly seem to be paying off for you around data. So that's great. Maybe we'll end with a fun one. So what's a fundamental belief about the future of AI and e-commerce that few others agree with you on?
Yeah, that's an interesting, I'll start with a joke. I will say that data is a singular noun, and I use data as a singular noun very often. And I think that's a little controversial, but all fun aside. I think one thing that I don't know how controversial it is, but it's something that is very dear to me, and I tell the team often. And it's not as grandiose as the future of AI or the future of e-commerce, but it's more about the practice of machine learning and data and how to conduct that practice. And it is about making sure that we are borrowing heavily from the best practices of engineering, software engineering that is, to build our data systems and machine learning systems. I'll explain what I mean here. When I was in grad school, I would write scripts to analyze data to publish papers. And those were all throwaway scripts. And I really made many errors and mistakes. And there was very little compounding over what I was doing, just because every single time I would build a brand new script to do something new and would make the same mistakes over and over again. When I joined Square in my previous career, I learned from some really great engineers that taught me how to maintain a large code base, how to build on top of it, how to make it testable, how to make it modular. And so I realized how important it is to build testable, modular, simple systems, because that's the only thing that allows you to really have compounding interest for your work. Now, again, I don't know that this is controversial. I think many people in the audience will agree with me strongly, but I think that the field of data and machine learning really needs to borrow a lot from the field of software engineering. That is why, for example, at Faire, all data scientists, and for us, data scientists is just for clarification, given that I know there's different nomenclature in the industry. For us, the data scientists are the people who are training and testing models and deploying those models to production. All the data scientists at Faire are screened in the interview process for coding, and I try to give them as much coaching and mentoring as possible, and encouragement as possible to get them to code into the backend code base, for example. So it is my fundamental belief that I think the field of data science / machine learning could continue benefiting. And I don't want to make it seem like there haven't been lots of strides. We've come a long way from 10, 15 years ago, when bringing a model to production required all sorts of back and forth between data scientists and data engineers to figure out exactly how to compute certain features and stuff like that. But I would say that even more investment is necessary, and there has been a ton of really cool stuff going on, like all the standardization around ML ops, ML platforms. It's definitely getting to the right place where we're starting to think really modularly about what is the entire journey of machine learning workflows and how do we really build modular systems that combine and slot in with one another that are really making everybody more productive, happier in doing the job, because really nobody likes that type of development that many people have done in grad school. And I think there is a reason why there has been this evolution. I think that the field of machine learning and AI has been very much seeded, very heavily seeded from academia. And I've seen that in academia, I personally wasn't using some of the best engineering practices. And so, again, I don't think that this is very controversial. I think very many people agree with me, but it is one of the things that I feel more strongly about, that the field of machine learning and AI that greatly benefit from adopting some of the best practices in software engineering.
Yeah, it's helpful to get your perspective on that. I know we spent a lot of our time together talking about the data and data-centric AI and the experiences you're driving there, but it sounds like the takeaway is, hey, don't underestimate the compound interest that one can get out of looking back at a lot of the software engineering principles that make software great as well. Perfect.
Exactly.
Well, it looks like we're out of time right now. I just wanted to say thank you again for participating in this time together. Hopefully people learned a lot today. I know I did. It was really nice getting to meet you.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the questions.